Welcome back to the Smugglers Den. This is episode 36. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes. As always, I'd like to thank swdestiny.com for hosting the Smugglers Den and doing all kinds of cool stuff. Spoiler season is upon us, so be checking there. They have all the spoilers. I want to thank everyone who has helped out the show on Patreon, Tiny Grimes. Thank you so much, and you're going to see in a moment, this show is dedicated to you. And if you like watching people stream Destiny, you can go to Tiny Grimes Destiny. Nope, that's not actually true at all. It's Twitch Tiny Grimes, and see me stream Destiny, usually choosing someone else's deck, and almost always they're angry about it. All right, so I'm bringing in a co-host this week who is actually a Patreon supporter. James Stevenson, it's your second time on the show. How does it feel, man, to be returning back?
I guess you didn't hate me last week, so thank you for having me back again this week. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm still not convinced you exist, but I've heard otherwise, so congratulations on existing.
Thank you. It is good to be a real person in this world and not just a figment of John Bruno's imagination.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Did you play any Destiny this week? Oh, actually, let me preface this. This is being recorded a week earlier. I'm going to be on vacation. I didn't want to not have a podcast. So if I've missed some important news and you're like, Tiny, how could you not have discussed that? What is wrong with you? That's why. That's why. All right. So, James, last week now this would be when it's released. How'd you do?
So I played in a little Q3 tournament, and it was small. Like, we had like 6 people show up, so not the best, but good competition. A couple store championship winners were there, Joe and Kelsey, and so a couple other people have done well in store championships. So like, it was a little tight but strong group of 6. And I've been playing a lot of Emaz, Snap, and Rey, and so I played that deck, and I went 2-1, came in second, was at the final game, and I still love the deck. First game I played was against Joe, who we were at a store championship together, and I had to leave the store championship. We both made the final, but I had to leave because of time. The store championship took a while. They did everything by hand. So we finally got to have our championship game.
Oh, that's how you're doing it, because you won, right? If you had lost, you'd have been like, that wasn't a championship game. That's crazy talk.
We joked about it prior, and then afterwards, like, I guess I have to give you the plaque now, right? And I was joking, like, yeah, and I was kind of like, no, really, yeah, but
yeah.
No, it's cool. It was he was playing Nines and Anakin, which is, anytime you have just Maz, it's kind of a scary deck to be sitting across, because that can just take Maz out first turn if it rolls well.
Yeah. Sure.
So I was a little antsy about it getting started, and I think he won the roll-off and had his battlefield, so I shielded Maz up, and he did a bunch of damage to Maz early, and I was sort of, just plinking at Nines. But, man, he had done a rocket launcher special and put 2 on Maz and 2 on Snap, and I put a second chance down, and the game sort of turned at that point, because, sometimes people look at Maz and they see, she's got 3 health left, and they're about to get her, and then you put a second chance down, and it's like she just went back to full health.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I'll just kill Snap now instead.
Yep.
And as soon as that happened, I was like, game over. I've got this. Like, once that target priority shifted, it was like, okay, no, this is easy. Like you can have Snap, because in that deck, Snap will bother the hell out of you the first couple turns, which is why he'll take your resources.
Yep.
He locks you out of the battlefield. But by like turn 3 or 4, all he's really doing at that point is this kind of utility die that either locks the battlefield down, which can be nice, or gives you a caution for a shields or something like that. So I got Nines off the table, and then it was just mitigating Anakin, and it wasn't too bad. And then the second game was Emo Boys, and I somehow won the roll off on that one. I was able to take the docking bay.
Who was that against?
Oh man, I can't remember his name. He was the only person I didn't know.
Was that Fire and Dice?
No, it was at Next Gen.
Oh, okay.
So I can't remember the guy's name. I knew everyone else was there. Ryan was there, and John Borders was there. So we had a good crew of people. I knew everyone except for this guy, and but I got the battlefield, and I was just like, all those little fun docking bay plays that people or cargo hold plays. I'm sorry that people have.
Oh, cargo hold, way different than docking bay. I was like, docking bay. What are you doing?
No, I know. I always say that. because I'm like a docking bay doesn't exist in my mind. There's only a cargo hold, but
There is the docking bay, and it would be terrible with your deck.
it would be awful. But all those little plays, I think if you haven't experienced it, where like your holocron gets moved and you lose the special you had on it after, and actually I fair traded the first 2 turns of the game, so it was a 2-for-1 swap the first turn, and the second turn so he didn't spend anything, and then he had 3 resources, and I was just sitting there waiting, and I was like, I was like, please don't spend them, because I think he actually ended up claiming the first turn, but I was like, just don't spend them on his first action. Don't spend them. And he he started to activate a character, then took it back, and then reached over to spend his resources. And I was like, don't do it, don't do it. He went back and activated his character and rolled in, and I was just like, vibro knife, roll, and then rolled Maz, and she came up blank in a resource, and I was like, I'm not going to resolve it. I fair traded again. He's like, I can't believe you had a second one. Yeah. And I was like, once you see one fair trade, there's usually another one right behind it. And so that resource swing, I think I had. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I actually had an interesting moment where I had 2 DL44s on Rey, and I didn't, and Maz was getting low on health, and I was kind of like, well, and I didn't have a second chance yet, and I was about to claim, and I was like, do I claim and mitigate something, or do I claim and move one of my DL44s to Maz and hope I draw the second chance? And I didn't do it, and I drew the second chance, and he killed Maz, but I was so far ahead it was okay, but it was one of those like really tough, like, is it better to have this, or is it better to risk these 3 resources on the chance I get the second chance, or lose it?
Did you count your deck to see how much was left?
Yeah, I looked. I had like 14 or 15 cards at that point, so I didn't. I had a reasonable shot, but it wasn't. I'm sure if I did it, I would have not drawn it, and by not doing it, I did draw it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Damned if you do or don't. And then in the end, I played Kelsey.
I knew it. I wanted to guess it, but I knew it was going to be Kelsey, the destroyer of hopes and dreams.
Yeah, she's playing Django Veers.
She's back to Django Veers?
She's back to Django Veers.
Wow.
And, she played it incredibly well. She's a great player. Yep. Basically 0 mistakes. She has the carbon freezing chamber, which is pretty good, I think, for Django Veers. It's usually that's a fast deck. I held it the entire game. She never claimed once, but she rolled really well. And one of the things, I never got the really blowout defensive position. It'd always be like she'd roll like 2 2s and 2 1s, and it's like, well, I can either take 6 or I can mitigate 2. But then Django would add to it, and she got a lot of great ranged rolls. She had like 1 turn where she didn't roll well, so it was kind of like there was just an oppressive amount of range damage, and Maz went down on turn 2. And I actually got it down. I think Veers had like 4 or 5 health, and like Rey at one point had 2 DL44s and a holdout blaster, and I turned her into a 1 with the Force. But in the end, it was 1 with the Force and empty snap versus Veers, who was totally loaded up. And I was close, but I just couldn't get that I couldn't get a roll. I was just trying for that. I think I re-rolled 1 with the Force 4 times at one point, trying to get the 3 range, and it just never came up. So she took it, and she got the tokens. But I got my Finn card, so I have all the Q3 kit stuff now, and I'm happy with that. So
I gotta say, with Kelsey, the joke with Kelsey is when she plays Django Veers, she just rolls fire. I don't know what's going on with those dice when she plays Django Veers, but she's almost unbeatable with that deck simply for the fact that she just rolls 2s the whole game, and it's absurd.
I don't know, those Veers dice are weighted or something. I don't know what's going on there. It was crazy. I was just like, it was like, you have those games where it's just like you are getting hit with so much damage, and you're throwing every piece of mitigation you've got, and you still are just like seeing your health pool whittle down really fast. And that's the way it was. Even with her 19 health, I still got Django off the board. I still done damage to Veers, but I just couldn't. I'd only done like 14 damage or 12 damage by the time she had wiped out all 3 characters and probably 10 shields, and it was just like, that was insane. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's really hard when a really good player like Kelsey rolls well, right? There's been other players I've played against that weren't very good, and they roll well, and you're like, that's all right. But Kelsey doesn't mess around. She's a really good player. She's won a lot of tournaments, and man, when she rolls well, look out.
Yep.
I was making it. So a friend of mine, Nick, Kelsey's also a friend of mine, but another friend of mine, Nick, in San Diego, and her were going to be paired up in the finals of that SoCal tournament, the Cash Money one.
Oh, the SoCal
And
Classic. Yeah.
yeah, and even before the tournament, I was like, listen, man, if Kelsey's there and I think she's going, you better look out. She rolls fire. Like, you better be ready for it. And it was those two in the finals, and he took a split. He was like, I don't want to go against the person who rolls fire.
That's great. It's not even like, oh, that person's so skilled, I want the split. It's those rolls, man. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm gonna stay away from those Veers dice.
She is a master of the Veers die. She's also a master of playing the game, but when you can
Okay.
also throw in mastery of rolling, then you're almost unbeatable at that point.
Yeah, she has those plays where it's like you get lulled into something, and then for completely like, oh yeah, you could still do that, and just some really, really smart plays that you don't see a lot of players make, and especially even just Django Veers. Like, you saw a lot of that back in the Awakenings meta, and you saw a lot of it played really badly, and she plays it flawlessly every time, and so you don't have many rooms for mistakes, and if she rolls really well, you have basically zero margin of error in that game, and you may just be toast ahead of time depending on what you're playing and what kind of removal you have.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, for myself, I mean, I talked about this yesterday when I recorded the podcast, but I played a tournament on Tuesday, so it would be a week from Tuesday, and I'm not going to go over it again, whatever. But I did have a funny moment. I was talking last week about how they didn't know me there. I was just this dude, and my friend Jimmy, you know Jimmy, right?
Yeah, of course.
So Jimmy is like a legend at the store, and I beat Jimmy. And the TO was like, whoa, you beat Jimmy. You beat Jimmy. I was like, yeah, I beat Jimmy. And he was like, oh, my God, no one's ever beaten Jimmy. So I got to be the legendary random player that beat Jimmy. But my favorite part was in the first round of the tournament. This dude, I'm playing him, and he's like trying to help me. I go to roll my nines, and he's like, whoa. I mean, I'm going to kill him. Like, I'm showing the damage here. I'm going to just be killing him. I'm not sure that you want to do that. I was like, this dude is not playing head games. He's just straight up trying to help me, which I'm not used to. I'm not used to people being like, yo, Tiny Grimes, let me help you play Destiny better in the middle of this tournament game. So it was kind of awkward. And I was like, and the problem was, it was one of my guys was already, had the Night Sister already exhausted. Bala is up. And I'm thinking, if he kills nines, I get to move 2 Riot Batons and a Holdout Blaster to Bala. So that's fine. So I activate nines to make sure he has to kill nines.
Right.
And he's like, I don't think you want to do that, man. It was really, really humorous moment for me. I'm just not used to that. And then his eyes kind of popped open when he killed nines. I moved everything to Bala and then like killed all 3 of his guys in one shot, just doing the machine gun Bala thing. And he was kind of like, oh no, I guess that was the right play.
Yeah, it's like I know I want you to kill him. That's why I'm making you kill him. I get it.
It's pretty funny.
That's funny. I didn't know Jimmy had this secret store that he was like king of and didn't tell any of us about.
Well, it's right next to my house. It's called the Game Hub. It's a nice store. Instead of driving 2 minutes every Tuesday to this store, I drive an hour and 15 minutes every Wednesday to a different store. I'm not a very smart person.
Yeah, it sounds like Tuesday night's your new night.
Yeah, the problem is it's not where my friends play, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I play Destiny to have fun with my friends, and then, tournaments are a different story. Like, I don't consider Tuesday night, Wednesday tournaments to be tournaments. Those are just hanging out with my friends, and there's incentive for people to bring good decks. Right. Tournaments are our store champion above to me.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the show. So this is basically a thank you, Patreon supporters, for being so insanely generous. $1 of support is just unfathomably generous. Anything above that, wow, you're amazing. And so I thought this week, since these shows were going to be stacked on top of each other, I would just have people ask me questions. And we got lots of questions. So what we're going to start off with is regular Destiny questions. And then it's going to move into the end as more of an AMA, ask me anything kind of thing. And I'll announce when we get there. And if you don't care about me and my life, you just turn it off at that point, right? And that's no problem. But the beginning are just going to be Destiny-related questions that Patreon supporters have. So I just want to do some thank yous. Thanks to Jake A, Rich M, Steve H, and Eric S for being at the coaching tier. Man, that's some serious support. Hopefully you guys feel like you're getting something out of it. And let's move on to the first question. And James is going to answer these as well, of course. So, Scott asks, can/should Destiny be competitive and fair? It's an interesting question. I'm going to take it this way, Jason. I just call you Jason. I'm going to say the question is, can Destiny really be a competitive game? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally think it can be a competitive game because, like, it has a lot of I mean, I know there's a lot of action cheating now and there's a lot of randomness, but I think we've seen time and time again the skilled players and the players putting in more play time and practice time and thinking about their decks and building decks well are finding themselves, consistently at the top. Now, that's not to say that a player who rolls really well, or, we've also seen it with Worlds and Euro Championships. We've seen people that learn the game right before going and play and play extremely well. And, at some level, I also think it's a fairly simple game. Like, it's not. There are a ton of possible things that can happen, but it's not a hard game to pick up. So I think a lot of really skilled game players and card players can pick this game up very quickly and probably find themselves somewhat proficient at it. And if they have good matchups and good rolls, they can actually show up pretty well at these tournaments. But if you also look at the list of the people that are making these top cuts, they're ones that are very serious about this game and are putting in the effort. So I think the skill level is usually shown when we see these standings. You see it at your store championships locally. You see it at the bigger events nationwide. That said, I always know that randomness causes people to hand ring or feeling like there's stuff you can't control causes people to hand ring a little bit. Yeah. So there has to be a fine balance of that to make the game kind of unexpected and interesting so that you don't know what's going to happen before the players even sit down. But I do think it's definitely a competitive and skill-based game at this point, and it'll be interesting to see how it evolves as we get the rest of this kind of first block out in the next few weeks.
Yep, I agree with that. I would say my initial impression of the game when I first saw it was not going to be competitive, and I was fine with that. I was getting into it to play with me and my daughter, and we were just going to have fun rolling Vader and rolling Luke and trying to kill each other. But yeah, I agree. As I've gotten more and more into it, I realized quickly early on that this could very well be a really competitive game. And like you said, there's moments where it's frustrating. But I got to say, I got out of Game of Thrones 2.0 because there were more moments than Destiny by far that were frustrating. And the same thing with the Star Wars LCG. So it just kind of depends on, how you define something can be competitive. And for me, it's like you. If the top tables are always with the same people, well, then that's a super competitive game. And that's certainly how it is in SoCal. Every now and then, if all the good players are there, someone will pop in who you're surprised by. But it's generally because it turns out they're good. And you just didn't know them yet.
Right.
All right.
And
go ahead.
No, I think it's one of those things, too, where, I think the aspect that we like about this game too, or I personally do, is that there's so many ranges of that play. You can bust out tier 3 decks and just, throw stuff around and have a really fun time and crazy weird stuff happens. And you can also take it really seriously and play it at a very high competitive level. And it's really thoughtful and every little action can count. And there's so much bluffing, and you think about the battlefield as a mechanic. There's so many great mechanics that don't necessarily scream skill to people, but as you play the game, you realize just how much skill and perception in this game there is. So I think it has a ton there. It's just very, appearances were deceiving. Like, we first all saw these candy coated dice. Yeah. It's like, what the hell is this? But underneath there was a lot of really, really cool design.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the great successes, right? Is to be able to design a game that works in both ways. All right.
For sure.
So Justin A asks, with FFG saying they want to make supports more playable in Empire at War, outside of more errata that will remove action cheating, what do you think they could actually do to make this happen? I would say it has nothing to do with action cheating. I don't think The fact that supports aren't as playable has anything to do with action cheating, because we still have decks like nines that are going to be moving a little slower, and giving up the battlefield and still being fine with that. I would say two things. One, just more efficient, right? Like, if you really want supports to be serious, there needs to be two cost supports that are productive and do things. By making everything 3, 4, 5, that means you're investing multiple turns into it, or having to build a specific deck that generates lots of resources. And if you invest 2 turns into a die, roll it, and it gets mitigated, that doesn't work. Whereas if you can get 2 cost supports that are reasonable, I think you can start moving into that arena. The other thing is having more cards that actually integrate with supports. Having more characters like Veers that do stuff. More cards that make supports good. Like, if you had an event that said, roll a support and resolve it for 1 or something, and then whatever it is, it goes, and then just goes back on the die and you get to activate it. That would be a huge encouragement to run supports, I think.
So basically, you want an action cheat for supports if you roll it and resolve it. Is that what you just said? I think you did.
Well, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be bad.
I agree with what you're saying. I actually think it's kind of a bummer. Like, I'll be interested to see what they do cost curve wise, because I feel like the TIE Fighter being 3 is sort of this weird like benchmark that, like, how do you cost anything in the future if a basic TIE Fighter is 3? I kind of wish that, and maybe they'll do like an Imperial TIE Fighter that's 2 and is not as good as the First Order TIE Fighter. But I think like a 2 cost stuff you can drop immediately, because it's not as good as an upgrade, because it's slower. Yeah. So if it had like similar sides to an upgrade, but then let you set off all these other cards, you saw that new card Pin Down is really, could be really good in a vehicle deck. I would love like a Squad Tactics, which is sort of an action cheat, but a card that maybe let you activate all your supports at once if you're going to play a support heavy deck, so you could roll all your vehicles in together. That might be a fun card that doesn't really let you cheat the dice out, but lets you at least get your dies going, and not have to sit there and activate 2 characters and 3 vehicles or something. The new docking, or the new weapons factory card. See, I almost call it docking bay. Everything's a docking bay to me. The weapons factory will be interesting too, like just in reducing that cost. So you could, if you win the roll off, you could play a 2-cost TIE Fighter on turn 1, and that is sort of the dream. I feel like a 2-cost TIE Fighter, First Order TIE Fighter, would be pretty playable, and you'd see some of the slower decks taking advantage of that for sure.
I think one of the problems is TIE Fighter's bad. So what we really end up with, TIE Fighter's bad, Scout Bike is bad. So what we really have are just 4 cost and higher supports that are any good. And I think that's the problem. If you had a 2-cost support that was good and a 3-cost support that was quite good, now I think that's encouragement for people to start playing them. But TIE Fighter is just such low impact for 3 resources. Just think of what you can get for 3 resources. You can get a Riot Baton that has huge impact, moves all over the board, and instead you get a TIE Fighter? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many other cards I'd rather have, rocket launcher, lightsaber, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do for 3, or you could play like a Planetary Uprising and still have a mitigation. Okay, that's Rebels versus TIE Fighter, but you get the point. Like, there's so many things you could do for 3 resources. Finding ways to reduce that cost, and I think long term, just introducing more better costed supports. And I think it may just be one of those things where some of these early supports are going to end up, power curved out when they realize that supports were overcosted to begin with.
Yep. And that's what we really need to focus on, that the TIE Fighter at 3 does not have to be the benchmark for the future. It can simply be a whoops moment, right? Like, oh, we didn't realize how overcosted all of the suite of supports are. Let's just drop everything 1. So you have a new TIE Fighter that comes out with a different name that has the exact same dice as the other one, and it costs 2. Right? And then for 3, you get something good. And I feel like they already did that a bit with Slave 1. Like, Slave 1 is really strong at 4. And if you had 5 cards like that you could put in a deck, you would. The problem is, it's like, I'm going to build a vehicle deck. Let's see, my good vehicles. I got Slave 1. All right, I'm not building a vehicle deck.
Yeah, there's really no there's no good way to do it. It's like I like Slave One. I think it fits in some decks that generate a lot of resources, but you need more to go with it. And it's like ATST. Even if ATST was 5, I think it would probably see even I think it would not a ton of play, but I think it'd see a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like it's more reachable. Like
Sure.
6 is just so prohibitive. And then the other aspect for these supports is at some level at a 5 or 6 you just expect these big ranged sides, and they're so susceptible to something like deflect.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh well, it doesn't matter, you have an ATSD, well I'll just deflect it right back into one of your other characters. And it's or a force throw, for instance, like, oh well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw your ATSD for 6 damage. Like,
Yep.
no thanks. Like,
yeah, not worth
so
it. Not worth that kind of investment.
yeah, so maybe the other thing is there needs to be some sort of, and maybe the TIE Pilot is kind of that card that was supposed to exist for that, which is protection for those dice. So maybe it's, you have your pilot and vehicle deck at some point that can generate the resources and put the vehicles out there, and then make sure that you can't just easily get rid of that big range die that's on the table.
I think we're on our way. All right. Next question is from Jan D. Why doesn't anyone play IG88? And this is a pretty easy one, James, because he sucks.
He's I think I've seen a couple people trying him with 9s, and and he's not horrific there, but
that's only because 9s is broken.
Well, yeah, okay. I guess I mean from the aspect of, hey, 9s wants the weapons, but he's going to overwrite them, and IG88's just going to pull weapons. But there's so many better ways to get 9's resources that it seems tough. That's super glass cannon-y to me, because if you run into a deck that can choke your resources, you pretty much are done. There's just no way you're ever going to get weapons on the 9s, and IG88's going to go down super fast. So
here's the more detailed reason for why IG88 stinks, in my opinion, is that he has similar dice to Vader. He's got the 2 and the 3 side, but he doesn't have all the Vader helpers. He doesn't have Force Strike. He doesn't have all those great cards you can put on him. Yes, you could put Fast Hands on him now, but that's not enough when you have Aura Singh, who I think is just better because she has 3 sides that do the same amount of damage. So IG has the double fight. He has to not only fight Vader for a slot, which he's going to lose, then he has to turn around and, if he wins that, somehow beat Aura Singh also, who's cheaper and does the same thing.
Yeah.
So he's in trouble. We're going to have to move on from him because we have a lot of questions. We're going to dedicate more time to the more difficult questions. So I'd like to thank Daniel F., Brian W., and Adam L. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for contributing. And the next question is from Marius K., I guess. In your opinion, how broken Empire at War will be, action cheating wise, if we take under consideration FFG's production cycle so they can do something about action cheating expansion after Empire? All right, let's simplify that question. I think the question is simply this. If FFG didn't actually know action cheating was a problem when they were testing Empire at War, can we really expect them to have fixed action cheating, or should we be chicken littling it already, terrified that even more crazy action cheating is coming and that it won't actually get fixed until the next set in which they knew it was a problem when they were testing?
So I feel like it's, how much worse could it really get? I mean, let's be real. We have Fast Hands, which is yellow. You've got Force Speed for both sides. Rey is the hero action cheat. Unless Red gets some, I mean, Red already kind of has theirs too. I think we've already seen the leaderships and the tactical masteries, and so is there much more that they could add that would make it any maybe there's more busted combos that will come up if there's a card like Maz or something, but I don't know if it can really accelerate too much more. I think we have these powerful cards for each color and faction that let you do it. I'm sure there'll be a handful of them because it's, they probably broke the setup, and this is essentially, from what everyone has said, most of these cards were all designed as a group together from these first 3 sets. And while Empire at War has a little bit of Awakenings learnings into it because it probably didn't go to the printer until March or so, March or April, basically this set was pre-Spirit of Rebellion design.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I think there'll probably be some more, but how much more efficient can the action cheating decks really get?
Yeah, I think what we're gonna end up seeing is definitely more action cheating. Like if Spirit of Rebellion was like, oh, action cheating is awesome, we should put it in the game, more of it. I can't imagine we'll see anything but even more in Empire at War. The question will be, like you said, will it like be so much better that we don't use the other stuff? I think more what it will be is giving you more options. So I could see a villain version of Rey. I could see a villain version of Maz. I could see some sort of battlefield that impacts it. These are all things I could see as being action cheating. Maybe an action cheat on a weapon. We haven't really seen that. But yeah, the question really is, should we be terrified and thinking that it's going to take the game into an even worse spot? I don't think it can get worse. I think like action cheating is a huge part of the game right now, and my hope is that set 3 will probably be the same sort of thing, and if something's totally out of control, they'll errata it. My assumption is that 9s will get errated soon after the release of Empire at War, as they kind of see if he's still amazing at that point. And then my hope is that in set 4, they say, like, okay, let's take a step back from the first 2 sets. What did people like about them? What did people dislike about them? People seem to be pretty vocal that there was too much action cheating. Let's make more cards like Tactical Mastery and less cards like Rey, 9s, and Maz. That's my guess.
The thing is, basically set 4 is probably, they're printing that in China right now. Like,
yeah, probably.
So the good news is they know what the community reaction has been to the SOR meta. Yep. So they have to make that educated guess, not knowing what Empire at War has, but they also know what's in Empire at War.
Yeah.
So I would assume that they can shift their design focus and kind of keep a better eye on that, knowing, Rey may be undercosted and her ability is so powerful. But yeah, if you think about it right now, like all of our Empire at War is on a big boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And in China, there's factories printing the base set that's going to be coming out after that, which is crazy when you think about the actual logistics of this thing. So
far ahead.
Yeah, Lucas is a year ahead of us.
I just think it would be so interesting to be a member of the design team, and as people are going bananas about Spirit of Rebellion, and you're like 2 sets ahead, and then you're like, wait, people hate cheating. Someone open up Empire at War real quick. How much cheating was in that one? I forgot. Oh God, there's too much. Or people aren't going to be too mad. I think that would be an interesting spot to be in.
Yeah, at least they've been so proactive, though, I think, and I think they're being really steady about their changes. Fast Hands was a measured change, but knowing that they were like, oh, we don't want to errata cards, but then they've quickly errata cards anyway. I feel pretty confident in them keeping an eye on the game, and I don't think they want to shake things up ahead of Gen Con and Nova too much, but I'm very curious to see what they do heading into Empire at War for sure, what that rules reference that drops right with Empire at War looks like.
Me too. All right, let's move on to the next one then. Scott P says, how powerful will Sabine be using Thermal Detonator and Throne Room? And I think what he means by that is you can put, when you exhaust Sabine, you get to throw a Thermal Detonator from your discard pile on her for 2. You can roll it out. No matter what it rolls, you could conceivably just immediately claim, do 3 to everybody. At the start of next turn, even as your first action if you want, just roll out Sabine, throwing the Thermal Detonator on her, and the next action claiming and doing 3 more to everybody. I hadn't really thought about that. That does sound kind of crazy. The only issue is, if that was your strategy, wouldn't they just mitigate that die?
What if they have Infamous and then they make Thermal Detonator Ambush?
Boy, that's a little scarier. But it's still, like, against a 3-character deck, yes, that's going to be tough. That's a real clock on the game. But against a 2-character deck, it's not as much. It's like, okay, you're going to do 3 to my guys and claim, like, Anakin can do easily that much himself, and then throw in Kylo, and emo kids could kill Sabine by like turn 2 or 3 if she's doing that. So I'm not too worried about that combo, but it is interesting to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Planetary Uprising in that, like, suddenly there's sort of that, the lethal end game is close, because if they, if they can whittle all your characters down, they suddenly have that potential to claim and then immediately hit you again the next turn.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like, if someone claims right away after doing one action and just doing kind of a AoE for 3 to everybody, you have all the time to just slowly roll everything out, re-roll everything, and set up, a massive damage spike. So I can't imagine Sabine surviving 2 turns of that, given most of the characters in the game. It will suck for like your 3-character mill decks, though. They'd have a tough time dealing with someone like Sabine. That's for damn sure.
They will lose. All right. Ryan R says, when you come across a mill or choke deck, what is the best way to knock it milled out? I've lost a Vader Jabba a few times lately. I think the answer to that is to be both careful and quick. And what I mean is, if they're going to roll out Jabba and take 2 cards out of your hand, you have to know that and not screw around. So if you have 3 resources and you have the 3-cost weapon, just put it out. Don't I'm going to do this first and this first. Just put out the things you need. Make them upgrades first. Prioritize that. Basically, be able to do the math with them. They're mathing you. That's how mill decks works. They're like, okay, if I can get this many cards a turn, I have this many turns to beat them. So make the math hard for them. Do so much damage that they don't get to do that. And realize you're probably not getting rerolls. You might get 1. So try to be choosing your weapons that you're playing, if you have choices, for things that don't need to have a lot of rerolls.
Yeah, I think you put it right. Like, you're on the clock. You need to increase your damage potential. You need to play smart about not necessarily re-rolling. If they're going to force you to re-roll, if they're going to take the cards anyway, you re-roll with those cards before they take them.
Yep. But
if they aren't going to take them, you may need to be careful about re-rolling or just living to see another turn. So you have to be. That's something you learn from, I think, from experience a little bit. But knowing how many cards they can take from your hand is a big one. Being aware of that. I played, and then sometimes just changing the way you play your deck. I was playing Agent of Zion, and he was playing. This is pre-errata, but it was One Punch Vader, and I was playing Poe Maz, and I rolled a fast stand special on Poe, and I could have thrown my rocket launcher right then and there to do 4 damage, but instead I played the rocket launcher onto Maz, so I was able to continually do the rocket launcher for the rest of the game, because I knew I needed that damage more consistently every single turn, rather than just discarding the card. I wanted to be able to roll that rocket launcher out with Maz every turn and do that damage. And so it's things like that where your deck may be meant to operate one way, but it operates against mill very differently, where your shield cards don't matter, so you just want to hold those, or all those sort of things you need to be thinking about when you're playing against mill. And I think you run into players who have never played mill and they just don't know what's happening to them, and then players that are experienced against mill change their game plan completely when they realize that's what they're up against.
Yeah, and mill decks generally don't scare me, because I feel like if you're flexible and your deck is well made, you should be okay. Every now and then something crazy happens, but mill is a really hard archetype to win, because they have to get both your deck and your hand, and that's just a really challenging thing.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Smurley then. He is our resident mill player, so not surprisingly, he's jumping on this mill question, and he says, do you think a mill deck should ever become a tier 1 deck, or do you think they should always be tier 2 that can win when piloted by dedicated experienced players? Now, if they can be tier 1, what card and mechanic design do you think would help? He does want mill decks to be tier 1. I'm not surprised. He loves mill decks. He says he'd like to introduce a die side that is mill instead of discard. And what he really wants is a dice card similar to Force Throw, but instead of throwing damage, it throws the value as mill off the deck. Let's start with that last one. That sounds kind of cool, like a special that says, throw the person's die at them, but remove then use that as mill. That's kind of
Yeah, I
cool.
love it. I love it. They should make that card. I hope, Smurley, I hope you win Worlds and you get to make that a card happen.
Yep, I'm gonna agree with
Because
that.
that's awesome. Like that'd be a cool force power. It's just a fun, weird card that would fit only in certain decks, but
Yep,
it'd be super useful for the decks did. It's removal, which is what Mill always needs, but also at the same time, it just does damage to the deck. Yeah, great. Like,
yep.
make that happen. Yeah.
What about tier one? Do you think Mildex should be tier one? I don't think so. I think tier 1.5 is a great place for Mildex, and to me, 1.5 means they can very easily win a tournament, but they're not quite as consistent as that top 2 to 3 decks. Like right now, if you said what's tier one, I would say there's probably only like 2 decks, and they're both Uncard. I mean, they're both FN decks, but there's quite a few 1.5 decks that are almost just as good. It's just that FN's ability is so crazy. I move him up just a tiny bit. So I wouldn't want Mildex to ever be at that tier where it's like this is sort of the oppressive tier. I want them to be kind of that next level down where they can be a real threat, but they're not the best deck in the format. That's a little scary to me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think like I wouldn't want them to be that tier 0 deck or that that the oppressive deck. If there's only a couple tier 1 decks, I wouldn't want them to all be relying on Mill. I think
Yeah.
if there was like a healthy 5 or 6 tier 1 decks and one of them was Mill, that's totally cool. Like I said, it shouldn't be where Mill is oppressive. I do think like I would like to see Control and maybe Control Mill be a little stronger than they are right now. But it's a very fine balance, and we'll have to see where things go. Like,
Yeah.
you look ahead at cards like Thrawn. There may be some really interesting kind of control mill options with Thrawn. So I'll be curious to see what skilled players do with that. And if it's a tier 1.5 deck that skilled players kind of push towards tier 1,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Control Mill is really my favorite archetype. I just love the idea of like, I am just going to annoy you. I am going to play like Palpatine would. I'm playing the long game, right? I'm going to take away all your resources, take away all your possibilities, mitigate everything you do, and eventually you will crumble beneath all of my power and might. That's the game I want to play because mainly I don't care quite as much what I roll. I just want to be able to be flexible with my rolls, and control decks allow you to do that a lot more.
Yeah, I think it would be a fun. It'd be a fun. We saw a little bit of it in Awakenings, but I think it'd be a fun deck type to see. Kind of again, not oppressive, but very competitive. It'd be a fun change up.
All right. I want to thank Amy K, Ryan R, Jeremy T, and Jonathan W. Thanks so much for supporting the show. You guys are awesome. And Joseph V asks, what are your thoughts on limiting Rey/FN to once per round? For those of you who haven't seen, I made a video a while back how I would fix a bunch of cards, and that's exactly what I said about Nines and Rey. Just slap the FFG once per round on them. I think they would be fine that way. People have said things like, well, they lose a lot of power. Nines cost 10. He shouldn't be that strong. Like, that's still really strong to be able to put a weapon on him, roll it, resolve it, and then activate him all for the low cost of 10. That's still too strong, actually, to me for 10, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm with you on Nines, and I think Rey. I guess Rey would help on some of the things like, oh, here's 4 speed, here's a vibro knife or something like that, which is a strong opening. But I think, it really depends. Like Hero doesn't have much going for it right now, so I'm hesitant to neuter Rey too much. I could also see I could also see pushing further and being like Rey just adds an ambush, so it eliminates the double action, which is still makes Rey decent if she can.
She's garbage then, man.
Well, yeah,
She's
you're probably right.
at that point. So here's the
Vibro
problem
Knife.
with Rey. Rey and Maz share the same problem. They are both too good. They are both the only things Hero has going for them. So the too good side is anytime you go to design a new card, this is why you get these absurd overcosted Hero cards, because I can just see the design team being like, let's make K2 like 17. And then people are like, whoa, Rey exists. And like, oh God, I forgot about Rey. Let's make him 20. And you're like, what? All because of the existence of Rey and Maz, I feel like we get these crazy costed hero cards. But then if you go the opposite side and you go, let's neuter them, you're like, okay, cool. So we just put our hero collections away until like set 4 or 5? Okay, that's weird. That's a weird choice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess once per turn may be the best like fix that makes her still useful, but man, it's like those are two tough cards to deal with in terms of what they do for heroes. Yep. But yeah, heroes have a rough hand right now, that's for sure.
This is my hope and dream, is that a set gets designed around the fact that Rey and Maz receive an errata with a drop of the set, right? So it's like, yes, we can't neuter them now, but let's say set 4, set 5, set 6, you say, here are well-costed heroes, and Rey can't do her ability anymore because that just doesn't work with this new mindset. That would be my favorite way to errata her.
I mean, they could also just decide to like rotate out the starters sooner.
That would be a dream, dude. If they with the new starters that are coming out with the new base set, if they rotated out the old starters, I would be over the moon excited.
Yeah, because you could just you honestly could just put a new Rey. Yep. Assuming base set's going to be Last Jedi themed, you could put a new Rey from Last Jedi who's she could even be similar, just more appropriately costed. And it could change. You could easily change most of that up. I don't think anyone's going to miss Rey or Finn or old Kylo that bad. So
yeah, the only thing that they'll miss is Force Throw, and I'm fine losing Force Throw.
But they'll reprint it. Like they could just easily put that in the next starter, and it wouldn't be rotated out then.
So this goes really well with the next question. Joe H asks, when we see the new base set early next year, do you think we'll see some of the characters replaced and removed? So will we have a new Rey and a new Poe with different stats and abilities as of April 2018, and the older versions no longer allowed in competitive play? What do you think?
I can't see Poe going anywhere because he's in booster packs, and I don't see them rotating out the Awakenings boosters that early. I'd be surprised if they rotate out. Rey maybe because she's in a starter, and you could, I don't think anyone would get too upset about rotating out old starters. So I think if they really wanted to nuke Rey, that's how they can nuke her. I know FFG's been a little cagey about when, but I still think I can't imagine they aren't pushing as hard as they can to have that base set on shelves in December. I think we see that base set. I really think they're going to push it for December because I think you got to try and get it out for the holidays. You know, that's just giant. If you're selling, cards and packs of cards, you want that base set all over in December. And I really feel like we're going to see that base set in December. But we'll see. That's my guess.
Selfishly, I'm hoping for March. It's just too much, too quick in a CCG is hard, right? It's hard on the wallet. It's not an LCG. A lot of friends I know, that's part of their, a lot of people I know in SoCal are waffling as to whether they're going to stop playing or not. A lot of it has to do with action cheating, but then it's also, for some people, it's can I keep up? And so December is pretty scary to me to have, a set drop in September and then another one in December. I think I could see that as a lot of people's leaving point. But
yeah, I think it'll be tough if Empire War slips too far into September. Then I think you're right, and it starts to get tough on your existing player base. But I do think everyone has to have a reality check here, and they're putting 3 sets out a year, and that means a set every 4 months. That's what it's going to be. There's going to be new cards every 4 months. This is a CCG,
but it's FFG, man. They say that, and then what they really mean is we will try for that and never ever reach that goal. That's what everyone's assuming.
Man, I think it's a bad assumption. I think, maybe it'll be 4.5 months, 5 months, but still, is that too much difference? I don't know. Figure out ways to play your CCGs economically.
You don't have to have all the cards.
You don't have to have all the cards. You can trade, you can buy individual cards, you can, look for ways, because it's a part, I think, of any CCG is how can I play this game in a way that makes financial sense for me.
Yeah.
And you have to have a strategy for that. You can't have that like approach of I must have every single play set of every single card. Some people will do that for sure, the hyper competitive players, but if you can't afford that, you need to look at it from, okay, how do I, when you go to a pre-release, maybe you want to sell some of those cards because they're worth a ton more before the decks come out. Like,
I don't have a full set yet, James. I'm missing several cards from Awakening still. I need an ATST, I need a Luke Saber, and I think there's one other card I need.
Do you really need an ATST?
Yeah, I only have one.
What I mean, do you really need it?
Oh, God, no. Otherwise, I'd have two.
Right, exactly.
I only, like, I got to the point where after doing some trading and opening packs, I needed, 22 cards or something. And I said, I want that one and that one. One of the cards I needed was Poe. I needed Poe. And then when all the spoilers started coming out for Spirit of Rebellion, I went, oh, crap. Poe's going to be really good. I need to grab a Poe now while he's not worth anything. And so I picked up that second Poe.
Yeah, and like there was a point before the Awakenings reprint hit where Poe was up to like $60 or $70. So like it was crazy. I mean, there's definitely like market timing to everything if you get really into it. But like I said, I think people just have to approach each set, and save and target things. Like go to those pre-releases, and if you pulled that 4-speed, some people sold 4-speeds for like $80, and then it went and bought a box. Yeah. So it's like, if you can turn a 4-speed into half a box or another box, that's an economical way to play the game. Maybe you aren't going to play 4-speeds in your deck, but you're going to have a lot of other options.
All right, I'm going to answer the question real quick as well. I don't think we'll have a new Poe for exactly what you said. And Rey, I'm hoping they rotate the starters, but I'm not optimistic they will. If you look at FFG's previous rotations, they are, quote, every 6 years, and they've never actually rotated anything ever yet. They're close to rotating something, but that game is dying anyway. So we'll have to see, but my guess is rotation comes on like a 3-year plan. I'm hoping for 2. If they rotate anything now, I think some people in the community will lose their minds because it's been so hard to get product as it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I think it will be 2-year though. I think they will try to keep this game fresh. I really think like Empire at War is for all of us who are playing the game, and maybe a little bit for new players. I think base set 1 is for new players, and then base set 2 will really be for new players as the old cards that are hard to find start getting pushed out.
Yeah, they're going to be so hard to find. Like old Vader may end up being worth hundreds of dollars because he's going to get harder and harder to find, and there's always going to be a Vader Raider style deck that's good. It might not be tier 1, but it's going to be close, and then someone's going to win a tournament with it, and people are going to go, oh God, I want the old Vader, he's so awesome. And they're going to be like, those don't exist anymore, man, but I'll sell you mine for $400.
Ah, glory.
All right, let's move on. Amy K asks, with Awakenings and SOR nearing their production ends and not currently having all characters from each, is it a good idea to get all those characters, even the bad ones, with the idea that with the next set there might be an awesome pairing with, say, Finn, or are some characters just broken no matter what? I would say it is a good idea to get all the characters because, like, you could just look at certain weapons and events and go, that's overcosted, that's bad, I will never play that, sorry. And then if that changes somehow, fine. But because of the way character pairings work, any character could become good with, like, the exception of Finn. But at the end of a cycle, they're worth nothing. Because it's like, people have known Luminar is bad now for several months. I have to imagine if there's a dude at your store with a Luminar and they have 4 of them, and you said, hey man, could I get a Luminara from you for $1 and you can buy a candy bar? They're going to be like, whatever, that's fine. Like, someone will go for that. And that's what you should do. You should try to pick up the characters at a really, really cheap cost. I think I got my Poe for $12 or something because he was not that good. And then now suddenly he's amazing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of low-cost ones that you could buy very cheaply if you want to fill out without buying more packs. It never hurts to pick up a bunch of cheap character cards. You find one seller on eBay that will willing to cut you a deal or something, and you probably can get a ton of those really cheap. So it's not bad to have those cards, but always weigh that. Are you going to spend $40-$50 on shitty characters, or are you going to go?
Don't do that.
Right, or you're going to go buy half a box of
Yeah.
cards and get some legendaries. I personally am more of the buy by the box type because I like getting
Mm,
6 guaranteed legendaries. I think that's a
yeah.
more economical way to play this game. So, if you're looking to spend in that $70-$80 range total, think just about buying a box of Awakenings right now or a
Oh, yeah.
box of Spirit and getting a ton of stuff. And then if there's stuff you have extras of, you can trade. And I'm sure you can get people to throw in Luminaras and
Hmm.
oh, I don't know what other terrible characters there are, but there's tons of them. And Outer Rim Smugglers, like whatever. You can get all of those when those people will throw those in for free if you're trading with them.
Sorry about that. Sorry about breaking Outer Rim Smuggler for all of you. Making my video before it was even released how it had to be errated, and then FFG was like, "You're right, it does." I was like, "What? Oh no, I broke him before he came out." Sorry about that. All right. So TJ Rob, this is Big Rob that I know, I believe, and he says, "What is the best tournament format for Destiny, and when will FFG make a change?" These are very different questions. Um, the problem is I don't know what the best tournament format is. The best tournament format at a minimum is one in which there isn't a huge strength of schedule issue for getting into the cut. So for the basic structure, I think it's called. I think one more round of Swiss is needed for a lot of those setups, so that the and ones get in is what it comes down to, and you don't have 8 and ones and 4 of them don't get in. As far as the format for the cut, though, that to me all depends on what Destiny looks like. If Destiny is 12-minute games, it has to be best of 3. It just has to be. If it's all control mill, best of 3 becomes impossible to get done in 95 minutes, and you need like 120 minutes. So I don't know the answer to the best of 3 problem. And when will FFG make a change? I'm not sure they will. I think one of the big mistakes we've made is assuming that this game is targeted towards the most competitive people, because that's who we are, a lot of the content makers, when really I think the game is made for casual players, and then there's a competitive side to it. And I think they like this idea that tournaments are quick hitting, you're in and out, and that's the end of the day. And I understand. I think just the one more round of Swiss so that people don't go in and out with a bad taste in their mouth will help that quite a bit.
Yeah, I would love another round just for, like you said, to get the all the and ones in. I think that's a great, given kind of the variance sometimes, and like being able to lose one game but then win out and know you're going to make the cut would be a really nice spot. And then if you've lost 2 games, then you're at the mercy of strength of schedule, and that's kind of okay at that point. Like you lost 2 games, strength of schedule will be the tiebreaker for those maybe that last slot. I do think the cut feels pretty good if we get to that point where all the players that should be in get in. Like you said, if the game starts getting longer, they kind of just adjusted the tiebreaker rules for best of 3, which is interesting.
Yeah,
I could
very.
also see. I love the current Swiss aspect of playing a lot of different people quickly and seeing a lot of different decks. I love the variety in the Swiss. I don't mind that it's best of 1 during Swiss. I think it's just fun to play a ton of different stuff and a ton of different players.
Yep.
I could almost see. I'd be interested to see what it would feel like if you played, if the cut turned into more of a double elimination type tournament
Yeah.
sort of thing. So I think that could be fun, where it would still keep the pace of play fast, so you don't have like one group of players in the cut finish their games in 30 minutes and the other take the full 90.
Yeah.
But at the same time, allow you to play a lot of different people and give you kind of that loss back where you get one loss. And once you use it, you're kind of on the ropes. I think that might be a fun way to do it. I'd be interested to see if someone would try a tournament like that, how it would feel. But it might solve some of the weird best of 3 issues if they moved into more of a double elimination cut.
Yep. I agree. And I'd like to thank Alex R., Jan D., Tropo Farmer, Astrolad, Joe H., and Justin A. And the next question is from Ghost of Rex, and he says, I wanted to know what you think about new win conditions FFG could introduce in future years. Seems like they brought the subject up in interviews in the past. I don't have an answer to this. I can't actually come up with some new win conditions. I'd be fine with having new win conditions. I'm not sure what they would be. Like maybe you could have some sort of support that says when you've done X amount of individual packets of damage, you win the game, and you put tokens on this to stack them up. Maybe there's some quest element that you could satisfy. I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting, but it seems like it would really put something new into the game that they'd have to test so thoroughly.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Star Wars CCG getting like objective cards and that sort of changing the whole starting of the game.
Yeah.
I think that's a long ways out, but you could sort of see like maybe you have kind of story like quests like train a Jedi where you'd have like Yoda and trainee Luke, and you're like having to like play upgrades that are slowly training Luke into becoming a Jedi, and when he like attains Jedi status and defeats a character or something, he wins. I don't know. Like, I think we're so far away from like needing massive game-changing mechanics. Like that feels like the thing they do in base set 6 when they're totally out of ideas.
Yep.
So I don't think we'll see that right away.
By the way, I love that you stole that from Star Wars CCG, first of all. But I love the idea of training Luke or someone else to be a Jedi. And the way you could do it is like you could do it just in the game as it is. Like there's 3 Jedi training cards, and once all 3 of these cruddy upgrades go down, they're 2-cost upgrades with weak dice, right? But there's 3 of them, and when you get them all out, then it's like you get to pull them off. You get to go into your deck and find he is a Jedi, and it says like you can go into your deck or your discard, and it's an upgrade that comes out. And it's like a 7-cost upgrade, and it is baller.
Yeah, I love it. I think
would be fun.
I think that'd be super fun. I mean, you see Crime Lord is sort of like an interesting example of like a not an alternative win condition, but a completely different way of defeating a character. So I could see like some cool legendary cards that maybe it could be like he is a Jedi, it'd be the legend. It'd be weird if that was a legendary needed like 3 other rare upgrades, but something like that could be really fun to let you play towards something else or play towards a way that you become so powerful you can then easily defeat your opponent's characters.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. All right, let's move on then to the AMA section. There are only about 5 questions, so if you don't care about this section, you can go ahead and pop out. Thanks for stopping by. But so go ahead, James, and ask me these questions. Tell me who they're from, though.
Of course. So the first is from, I think it's Julio M, but it might be Julio M, but I'll say Julio M. Tiny, what's with the hats? Why are you wearing hats inside? Didn't your mom teach you any manners?
She did not teach me any manners, actually, no. And I guess I was going to say I don't normally wear hats indoors, but I guess I do wear my Cubs hat indoors when my hair has not been properly cared for. But I don't wear hats that often. So one of the big funny things is I show up at an event and I'm incognito all of a sudden because people look at me funny and they'll be like, I feel like I know that guy. And it's not until I start talking that they're like, whoa, are you Tiny Grimes? I didn't even recognize you without your hat on. How come you don't wear that? So I don't normally wear the hats all over.
So it's just a YouTube movie magic thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So is the only reason you wear the Cubs hats indoors because you're a little embarrassed this year to wear it outdoors?
Dude, the way you are as a Cubs fan, we got a World Series. We can go 0-162 the next 5 years. I will not be embarrassed. I'll be like, dude, don't you remember 5 years ago we won a World Series?
I feel like you guys are camels. This one should tide you over for almost a century, really.
For me, personally, it will. Like, if we don't win another one in my lifetime, I'll be all right with that.
That's good. So Julio had another question. He said, which Star Wars Destiny character do you identify yourself the most with and why?
Probably Palpatine. And I'm not as evil as Palpatine, but I feel like playing the long game and being like talking to people, and I love, especially in game, to really manipulate people and trying
Would you say you're pulling the strings?
Exactly. I like to pull the strings and that kind of stuff. It doesn't translate to all of my life, of course, but when you're a teacher, you're often doing that in a positive way, right? Like I kind of think of myself as Palpatine if he wasn't pure evil.
So is that Yoda?
I feel like Yoda doesn't pull the strings quite as much. He's kind of like Anakin will go to him and be like, Yoda, I'm having the worst time. I'm in love and I'm afraid she's going to die. And he's like, the answer is don't care about anything. And you're like, Yoda, that's the worst freaking answer I've ever heard. So I don't like to think that I'm like Yoda. I love Yoda, but man, he's got bad answers.
Mm. So this relates to teaching, but RNG asks, what was the topic of your thesis?
So I'm gonna assume he means dissertation. They're slightly different. But the topic of my dissertation was Paul of Tarsus. He's a guy in the New Testament who writes letters, and I looked at the way how he presented himself differently in each letter as a persuasion device for that community. So to some communities he wrote to them and he was really sweet with them and talked about how friendly they are, and then he used that to try to persuade them to see things his way. And in other communities where he was having a rougher time, he would basically scream terrible things at them and then say, you better toe the line and do what I say.
Oh, that's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I find, again, it's the Palpatine pulling the strings thing, right? That's what I find to be fascinating.
Huh, interesting. And so, I know, excuse my ignorance here, but now you're a professor?
I have a PhD in ancient history, focusing on the first century and around it. So the Greeks, the Romans, Christians, Judaism, that kind of stuff. But then I also do religion, and I have been teaching at the university level. And come this fall, I've decided to take my talents to a private high school and see how that goes for a year. I'm very curious.
Oh, wow. Congratulations on the new gig. That's
Should be
awesome.
A lot of fun. I really like teaching and interacting with young people. So I think high school is actually going to be a great fit for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Moving on, Scott P says, what would be your spirit droid?
I'd like to say something cool, but unfortunately, it's probably 3PO. Like, even though he's a big jerk face, he knows a lot and he tells you regularly. And I feel like I do that in all aspects of my life. Like, my wife and I went to Italy one time, and when we were in Rome, she was like, dude, if you talk again, I'm going to punch you. Because it would be like everything we'd see, I'd be like, oh, that was built in this year by this person, and they did this. And after a while, she was like, I don't care. Like, I don't know why you think I care, but I don't. And then, I bring 3PO into Star Wars and, do podcasts and all this kind of nonsense.
Yeah, 3PO sounds good. I was afraid you were going to say IG-88 since we bashed him earlier, but fortunately.
Definitely not IG-88.
Okay, I think this is a long question, multi-part, but the last one, and it's from our favorite mill player, Smurley. He said, I know you have some little ones. I do as well. So I'm always impressed how on top of Destiny you are able to be, as well as the amount of content you can create each week. What's your secret? I get one night a week to sneak out to my game store and get some games in. So bravo, sir. Do you have a monthly subscription to 1-800-Flowers?
Yeah, you're right, Smurley. It's tough. Having kids and a wife is tough. I also only get one night a week. It's why I've missed most of the store championships. Yeah, I've been to 3, and that sounds like a lot. But in LA, when they're like every weekend, and I miss almost all of them, it's tough. We have tournaments almost every night with cool prizes, and I miss all of those. And so, yeah, I hear you, Smurley. As far as how do I carve out more time, the past several years I've only been teaching part-time at the university. So I've been able to carve out pieces. It's why I don't really stream much anymore, because that takes a lot of time. I'm able to get a couple games in when the kids are taking a nap or late at night, and then just do a quick hour video. It's why my videos don't have crazy production value. It's just I sit down, I fire up record, I talk, I stop, I edit for like 3 minutes, and I post it, and that is all the time that I have. I hear ya. It's tough. Basically, I've just made Destiny that thing that I do with all my free time. And it's probably a bad thing, right? I don't exercise as much as I should because my free time has gone into Destiny. So for all of you who are on Patreon supporting me, thank you so much. It's made me able to do this. Maybe it has made my health worse, and I won't live very long. But I'll be happy while I'm alive.
Tiny, can I tell you my secret?
What's your secret?
I have a recumbent exercise bike that I can prop my laptop onto, so I can play on TTS while riding an exercise bike.
Oh, there you go. That's
it's good stuff. So you get that's actually I used to play Hearthstone quite a bit, and when I racked up like 700 arena wins or something ridiculous in Hearthstone, it was all I would sit there for hours with an iPad on my exercise bike playing Hearthstone.
Nice.
And that's my hint to anyone: if you want to find a good way to exercise, play video games while you do it.
There you go. Wow, smart man right there. See, that's the problem when you're not smart like me. You don't come up with these ideas.
Well, I also don't have kids, so it's a little bit easier probably.
Oh, kids. The best and worst thing that ever happens to you. Oh, man.
I can't wait. Someday you're going to be bringing them to a tournament, though, and it's going to be awesome.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. My older one does not like to lose. She was liking Star Wars Destiny, and then we just had a couple games that she even won them, but they didn't go the way she wanted. And so then she was like, I hate this game. I was like, okay.
No.
Okay.
The protege.
Yeah, I was really sad. The day when she stopped playing and opening packs with me was a sad day because we bought the game together to play together, assuming it was not going to work competitively.
And then it turned into Dad's thing. Oh,
Yep.
well.
All right. I'm going to thank a couple more people. John B., Brian H., Sean K., Ryan F., Ghost of Rex, Christopher F., Bojangles, and Chris F. All the rest of you that I didn't get to this time, I'll try to squeeze you into some future episodes. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thank you, James, for coming on for this episode. I hope the week that this comes out is crazy eventful and I'm missing everything. And I'll see you guys soon. And James, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter. It's at James Stevenson. And I also hang out in the Tiny Grimes Patreon Discord. So, if you're ever...
sounds fancy.
Once you're a Patreon subscriber, jump on the Discord. Lots of good conversations going on there. I'm just Jay Stevenson on Discord. So if you want to chat there, I'm also always on Discord talking about Destiny.
Sounds good. Well, you can find me on Tiny Grimes Games on Twitter. Tiny Grimes pretty much everywhere else except for YouTube. I have a crazy name, so just look for Tiny Grimes content. You'll find me. And thanks again to everyone on Patreon. You go to Patreon, Tiny Grimes, new tier list coming, discussions all the time. We have a great time over there. And we'll see you next week on Smugglers Den.